Hello and welcome to that fourth class on Megillat Esther that we are going to dedicate for the Refuah Shelema of all the wounded, Bezrat Hashem, the protection of our Chayalim, the protection of all Am Israel, the Refuat Nefesh and Refuat Guf of all Am Israel, Bezrat Hashem. Also for the freedom of our Chatufim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should let them out already. 152 days today is so painful and so heavy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should really reveal himself and let them out to go back to their family, Bezrat Hashem. We're going to read Perek Chaf. למנצר מזמור לדוד יענך אדוני וימסרה ישגבך השם אלוהי יעקב. נשלח עזריך מקודש ומציון יסעדיך, יזכור מלכותיך ורולתך ידש נסלה. ייתן לך חלבביך וכל עצתך ימלא. נרננה בשבועתך ושם אלוהינו נדגול. ימלא אדוני כל משאלותיך. עתה ידעתי כי יושר אדוני משיחו ירנהו משמי קודשו בגבורות ישע ימינו. אלי ברכב ואלי בסים, ואנחנו בשם אדוני אלוהינו נזכיר אימה קרו ונפלו, ואנחנו קמנו ונתעודת אדוני יושר המלך יעננו ביום קורנו. Okay. This class is also dedicated for the Refuah Shelema Bekarov of Shira Yafat Bat Sarah, Tal Yaakov Ben Sarah, Yosef Ishai Ben Daniel Miriam, Dvorah, and Yirmiyahu Ben Devorah, Idon Shalom Ben Sarah, and David Yosef Ben Esther. Okay, let's go back to our Megillah. So, last week and the previous weeks, we were saying that we saw that the Megillat Esther has for objective to reveal what is hidden. It says that's the paradox of the name Megillah and Esther. Megillah is to reveal, Esther is what is hidden, so it's to reveal what is hidden. Okay, that's the purpose of the Megillah. Why? Why is it that we have to read the Megillah? Why is it that we have to read? It's a mitzvah of the Torah to read the Megillah, to hear the Megillah twice every year on that night and then on that day of Purim. It is to prepare us to find Hashem where he is hiding. Because in our era, that's what we said in the first class, I think, of Da'at Torah, Hashem's presence is hidden. We cannot see him. We cannot see him obviously. We cannot speak to him directly. But we can feel his presence. We can look for him. We can find him in his hiddenness. Okay? Then it's also to help each generation until Mashiach to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to understand that even when we feel like things happen randomly, when we feel like we're going through great challenges, that we're hopeless, that we see no silver lining at the end of that tunnel, Hashem is here with us. He's hiding in this darkness, and it is our mission to reveal him, to see the Ashkacha Pratit in these circumstances that seems so disorganized, so random, right? We also saw that this text of the Megillah is coded. We don't see even once the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu appear in the text, for instance. Everything is coded. The way the text is written also reveals the personality, the intentions of the characters of the Megillah. For instance, you remember last week we were saying that when it says Queen Vashti, Hamalka Vashti in the text, it refers to her in her position of royalty, right? When it says Vashti Hamalka, it is meant by the person who is speaking to disregard her royal title, to take her down from it somehow, okay? So that's very interesting. So we are learning from this book that is the Malbim on Megillat Esther. Oops, sorry about that. And what do we learn through the Malbim for the moment? What have we learned so far? We learned also to reveal the personality of three important characters so far. The first one is King Achashverosh. So what do we know about him? We know that he's suffering from the imposter syndrome because even though he is the emperor of 127 countries, he didn't conquer them. He used a randomly earned treasure in order to acquire the countries. So what happens? He feels so illegitimate as a king. And that makes him an easy target to be manipulated by his environment, as we will see very soon, actually. So he's not very respected. And we see that last week, we saw that even at home, he's not very respected. Even as a husband, he's not very respected, right? He doesn't seem to be wanting to take revenge or to be cruel in the judgment towards his wife, though. Even though she disobeyed him, we saw last week, he seems like a weak person somehow, right? That's for the moment what we know about King Achashverosh. Now, second character, Queen Vashti. So we know that we're not going to see her for much in the Megillah, but what we know about her is that she's from royal legacy, lineage, and she's not afraid to tell her husband that he's not from the same rank as her. Because she refuses to obey the King Achashverosh's order to show up in that big banquet in front of all those very noble people from Persia in her original beauty as a woman, right? Just wearing that crown. So she would not have been seen as a queen at that moment. She would have been perceived as a person who is beautiful and therefore would have legitimated somehow King Achashverosh as a king, right? He's not just the husband of that legitimate person. He chose her not because she had a crown on her head already. She was from a royal lineage, but because she was beautiful. So because of that, she has to face a judgment. And this judgment, as we saw last week, will end up being very hard since she will be condemned to death penalty, right? Now there is a third important character that we actually didn't meet, obviously, yet. For the moment, he appears under another name. It's a code, again, a hidden, right? All the Megillah is about hiddenness and secrets. So for the moment, we are going to speak about Haman, even though for the moment, he's not called Haman, but he's named as one of the advisors of the king, and his name is Memuchan, right? Rashi explains that Memuchan is Haman, and other commentators will do that also. So he is Haman. And from we see that Haman has this obsession to make the case of Queen Vashti and King Achashverosh an example of how a husband in the Persian Empire should be respected by his wife by all means. It's funny because he really manages to manipulate the king by convincing him to decree that from now on, the king has all powers of legislation. He doesn't need the parliament to accept his plan, right? So basically, it makes Achashverosh a dictator, but it's a dictator in the hands of a manipulator. And who's a manipulator? This Memuchan, Haman. And this guy, this Rasha, who thinks that he's really like working on his own plans, right? That he's trying to get the king to do what he wants for himself, which means like he has a lot of problem of shalom bayit at home. He has an abusive wife, apparently, and he wants to prove her that he's the man. So he's going to use the power and try of King Ahasuerus in order to make his wife respect him, right? The problem is that by giving King Ahasuerus this power of overpassing the parliament, he's actually doing something that will be the decor that will enable King Ahasuerus to freely kill him at the moment in the story when Haman will be revealed and will fail. So it's already one very interesting element of Revelation, how even when we feel as single individuals that we are choosing, that we are building with our own plans, right? Eh bien, well, we feel a single individual is successful to build up an evil plan. And in reality, behind all that, Hashem has it all. We can already understand how the Hashgacha Pratit is shaping the picture of that narrative of the Megillah. And he manages to have King Ahasuerus to pass a law, as we said, that all wives of the empire have to obey their husband and speak in the native language of their husband. Okay, so that's where we left last week, and now we're opening chapter 2. So, first verse of chapter 2, right? After these events, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had subsided, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what was decreed against her. So, what secret is revealed between those three separate particulars? He remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what was decreed against her. So the first one, Vashti, he remembered the woman Vashti. We're not saying Queen Vashti, we're saying Vashti, right? So what was he remembering about her? He was remembering that she was beautiful, that she was noble, that she had virtues, right? He's asking himself, remember that he's not really self-confident. Will I be able to find such a beautiful, noble, and virtuous woman? That's one first fear of King Ahasuerus at that moment. Second thing, he got afraid that if he finds someone that matches all those characteristics, she could be able to act the same way as Vashti did. And there was no way he was going to be known as the cruel king who kills his wife, right? So that's a second fear of Ahasuerus. The third fear of Ahasuerus is that if he finds that rare woman, will she be willing to marry him knowing what had been decreed against his previous wife? So once again, we see here the lack of confidence of King Ahasuerus, and we also understand the challenge of finding a new queen. Who will be fitting this role? It's very complicated, right? And now we're going to see how those fears that Ahasuerus has will actually shape the new reality for King Ahasuerus. Let's see, verse number 2. Then the king's servant boys who ministered to him said, "Let young, beautiful virgins be sought for the king. Let the king appoint overseers in every province of his kingdom to assemble all the young, beautiful virgins in Shushan, the citadel, in the women's quarters, in the charge of Hege, the king's chamberlain, custodian of the women, and let their ointments be given to them." Okay, so how first can the servant boys suggest to take a woman from the streets to be the new queen, the new wife for the king? Isn't it a lack of respect of honor to the king. Plus, there seems to be two contradictory suggestions. First is that the young, beautiful virgins be sought, right? That means that it implies that these women give their consent. If they are sought, they apparently give their consent to be selected, right? But right after, we see that he asked for overseers to assemble them, which implies that they would be coerced. So what do they mean exactly? Why would they be placed in charge of Hege also? Why would those women who will be assembled would be placed in the charge of this chamberlain? And why are those ointments so important in this case? Let's see what it reveals. I love that idea of revealing all those details verse by verse. Are you excited? Okay, so the Malbim explains. I hope you hear me because there is a construction. I'm at home today. One of my kids is sick, so there is a construction behind me, and I hope you can hear me clearly. So remember in the previous verse, right, we were revealing 3 worries of the king, right? So what is the servant going to do? He's going to address each one of them. First, he's going to say regarding fear number 1, right? He says, with regard to finding a woman as beautiful as Vashti, they suggest that they should search intensively a woman suitable to be his wife without paying attention to her lineage, implying by that, according to the Malbim, that those servants were saying, King, you are so great. You're so amazing. You're such a big king that you don't need a wife with such a precious lineage. And therefore, finding a wife from a lower class was not dishonorable. It's enough for her to be a young and beautiful virgin. That's it. No need for anything else. That's the first fear. Wait 1 second. So second fear, second answer to that fear. Regarding the king, so actually, no, we're going first. He's going to address the third concern, right, of King Ahasuerus. And he's saying, such a woman might not want to marry him out of fear, right? That was his fear. But the servant voice is going to say, in case this first search where we sought for them and they come willingly, right? In case he did not provide a suitable woman, then and only then will the king still have another possibility, right? What is it? To appoint overseers to assemble the young virgins without their consent. Basically, to abduct them, to kidnap them. Ay, ay, ay. And third thing that we see in that verse is the servant is going to reassure the king on his second worry, right? That the new queen might reproduce Vashti's transgression. So he says, don't worry, because they will be placed under the surveillance of Hege, the chamberlain, and they will not be allowed to bring their own makeup. Why is it so important? That kind of makeup, the ointment that we're speaking about, the makeup, the equivalent of the makeup of today. The chamberlain will be the provider for this. And why? Because it will create a relationship of dependency. And for 1 year of training, during 1 year of training, he will be the one holding on to these ointments, and they will need to ask for it. And somehow it will make those women feel humbled. And therefore, they will not feel entitled to disobey the king. Wow. That's a plan. That's an evil plan. Okay. Now let's go to verse 4, right? The maiden who pleases the king will reign in place of Vashti. So, it continues. This suggestion pleased the king, and he followed it. Okay. Well, here, there's nothing really to comment. The maiden, even if she's not of aristocratic lineage, as long as she pleases the king, she will be chosen to be his wife, right? So let's jump into the next verse. And this one is a nice one. Verse 5. Here in verse 5, we read, Ish Yehudi haya beshushan adira. Ushmo Mordechai ben Yair ben Shim'i ben Kish ish Yemini. There was a Jewish man in Shushan, the citadel, whose name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. What is a Benjaminite? He's a descendant of the tribe of Binyamin, right? Okay. So why are we mentioning Mordechai's lineage? Why are we mentioning Mordechai's lineage? I think it's very interesting. Let's dig into what the Malbim says. He says, we are now shown the virtue, how exceptional people are Mordechai and Esther, right? We're going to discover that. This is the first time we're going to mention Mordechai, the first time we discover him, and why is he related? Why do we present him like that? We could have said, you know what? There was this guy, Mordechai, he was a Jew from Shoshan. That's it, right? No. We related him to his lineage. We'll see the lineage is important. We saw a poor lineage on one side. We're going to see a nice lineage now. So, and it's even more interesting to understand that because in the previous verse, as we said, we were speaking about lineage, we were speaking about royalty. But that royalty from Balthazar, right, who is the grandfather of Vashti. And Balthazar was nothing to be a righteous person, was really not a righteous person. So here we are associating the word Yehudi, and it's the first time that it appears, because if you remember, I don't know if we said it together, but I think so. If you follow other classes, maybe you will have heard that already, that we were called Jews after the story of Purim. Before that, we are Bnei Israel, we are Ivrim, but we are not called Yehudim, right? There is something there that we're going to discover, that we're going to reveal. So here we are associating the word Yehudi, that is the first time it appears, with the lineage of righteous people. The royalty of a Jew is not what the society gives as a title. It is his midot, his values, his lineage of good people. Yeah. And the Malbim explains that we see here the 3 occasions to show virtuous character of Mordechai and Esther. So what is it? It is first when Esther was forcibly abducted. So she never went to the king by will, by choice, right? The first time when she showed that she was virtuous and she didn't want to be abducted and she didn't go there willingly was when she was taken from her home, right? Then when she was held in Hege's custody for 12 months. And then when she was taken to the king's palace after the 12 months waiting period, right? So the first abduction is now being narrated. So we say that Mordechai had concealed Esther. He had hidden Esther, which, by the way, was not her name. Her name was Hadassah, and we're going to see that in a few minutes, right? For a long period of time, even though this involved considerable danger. Why? Because the king Ahasuerus had commanded that anyone with a beautiful daughter must bring her to the overseers, right? Otherwise, what was he facing? Death penalty for disobeying the king. We know that. We saw it previously. The decor of that has been planted already. Whoever disobeys the king, directly killed, right? So, here we see that even though Mordechai didn't want to hand over Esther, he had to, right? I'm going to put pause just 1 second.